Hey, so 8 months into, so we've had a baby. Our Danica is now 8 months old, and these are some of the books that have been the most helpful both before she was born and then after she was born in those first couple of months. And I actually learned a lot from even the process of picking what books to choose because I initially wanted to read a lot of the books that like I grew up with, which is fantastic and it's totally fine. But there are some fine distinctions that come in the first, especially in the first couple of months that I actually didn't know about. But so the first thing I want to start off with is Baby Bargains. It's basically a book that kind of does it's a book that's updated every single year, and they have different reviews and then ways of saving between the claim is between 20 and 50% on a whole bunch of stuff. I don't necessarily know how much it ended up saving, but I do know that my wife absolutely like loved this, and it gave a lot of direction and ideas of things that we might not necessarily have thought of. So like for example, like a snot sucker. So it's like a thing that basically goes not up the baby's nose, but right at like the nostril, and you literally suck through like a long tube and go, and it gets like it pulls the snot out of there, and there's like a little. I mean, there's no way that you're going to end up eating the snot because the tube is pretty long. But it's something I wouldn't have thought about that this book does definitely cover. So I would highly recommend picking up something like this because they are very, very helpful. The first couple of months regarding books, it doesn't really matter what you end up reading so much because I think that any reading is going to be good. But babies don't actually develop color. They're not able to sense color or like find distinctions between shapes and images until around 4 to 5 months because their sight is still being developed. So I didn't actually know this at the time. So when we got these books that have high contrast. So it's all like black, white, and red because those are just basically the high contrast colors. And what they do is they're super, super, super simple, but you can see how it has like obvious shapes and stuff like that, and they can still be able to see them. But the big important thing is that up until 4 to 5 months, they don't see different shades of color and stuff like that. So these black and white ones are really, really, really good. And what you can do with them is you can even play with them as like pointing out like, oh, do you see the white spots and the big white spots, the little white spots? Like one of the things that I learned is to basically take anything and turn it into a lesson of stuff that you can explain, because the more language that you give them, the better it's going to be for them, especially if you can use simple language, speaking complete sentences. So it's nothing like for example, like me daddy is not good because it doesn't teach them a good way of speaking. And so sometimes like the baby talk and stuff like that is actually really, really not good. But so anyway, back to the book. These books are like all high contrast. You can see like some of them introduce some color kind of coming into it, but they're really, really, really simple, and that's the big thing about them. And then next, this is currently her favorite book. It's called My Fuzzy Friends. And you can see, there we go. So like the ears up here, they have something that's like that you can kind of, that she can touch, and it has a different texture to it. And after a certain number of times of kind of going through it, she now reaches out to touch them. And so it'll tell you, hey, blah, 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 blah. And then some of them will give you, it'll tell you where, it'll encourage touching, but then it'll also get some kind of fun with like this one, can you touch it with your toes? So then you just like basically, you take her foot and rub it against that, and it's a whole new experience for her. So it's about that same thing of taking anything and turning it into, kind of like a lesson in a sense. So this was another one, Never Touch a Dinosaur, because it has, I don't know if you can see, but it has like spikes almost on this one. So when we open up the page, they all have different textures that she can touch and explore and just kind of feel. And what you also end up having to do is you kind of take her hand and like, make sure that she ends up touching it in that sense. Let's see some of the other favorites. Of course, like anything, Eric Carle, Very Hungry Caterpillar, Brown Bear, Brown Bear, What Do You See? There's a whole slew of them. They're all done in a very similar art way, done similar artwork, which is very, very, very cool. Again, you just take everything and you turn it into a lesson. Do you see the color purple? Going up and down with inflections and tonalities. The variety is a really, really big thing. This is an author who I've never actually heard of, but her name is Sandra Boynton. And these are some of our favorite books because they're short, they're pretty simple, and they're just kind of fun to read. And she's got a bunch of them. So, they're, like less than 10 pages or maybe about 10 pages. These types of books, anything that has like something else that she can kind of explore and grab onto. This one's called Because I Love You. And one of the cool things about books like this is that, there we go. It tells you kind of when to emphasize. So it says, "You're so beautiful in every way." So it gives you kind of a guidepost of how to speak. And so this way it'll kind of force you to keep moving up and down your inflection and that kind of stuff. The only thing that she really likes doing with this is she loves trying to eat the antennas, which is totally fine. It's something for her, to explore a little bit. Just don't want to meet them too much. And then, that book probably got put away. So there are little like books that are they're like this big, and they are finger puppet books, and they have like a little hole through the whole book, but it has like a little puppet. They've already gotten packed because we're getting ready for a trip. But basically, you put your finger through the hole, and you move it up and down, and it has like a panda or a unicorn, and they're all like 5-page books. But the thing is, though, is that those are her absolute favorite because she can touch the panda and touch the unicorn, and it's part of the actual book. So if you imagine a hole right here with like a little sock puppet basically kind of coming out. This is also one that she's really, really been loving recently because she has recently started like grasping and stuff like that. And she can do this kind of stuff. So as we're going through all of the different flaps, she starts to pick up on where they are. And even if I have to help her out a little bit, it's still something where I can go like this and she'll grab it to open it up. So it lends itself to her exploring on her own and actually doing the motion because I don't want to do it for her. And then lastly, books that expose like the variety of life to different people. So this one is called Global Baby Girls, and this one has all different types of clothing and different babies from all around the world, so she can see these kinds of things because it can be very easy to kind of get stuck in a bubble and realize like, she's never seen Indian people before because there's just not a whole lot of Indian people, near in our regular routes of either at daycare. Funny enough, there is people at daycare, but basically it's just kind of an exposure to, different people of the world and that kind of stuff. So I hope this wasn't too long, almost 9 minutes now, but honestly, like this is something that we are very, very passionate about. We love books, and we love kind of exploring and tinkering around with things. My wife is a speech language therapist, so she really, really knows her stuff inside and out on this. And so this has been a lot of fun. I hope it's been helpful for you, and I'd love to hear what you think.